Hey kid, welcome back to your Kidtime Storytime. We are coming back to one of my favorite books ever, Magic Carpet. It's full of amazing, beautiful stories. Excuse me, Red Bear. We're going today to see a story all the way in the back of the book called Any Old Junk Today. Think you'll like it, especially if you're a budding entrepreneur. Never a week went by without Eddie's bringing home some piece of what Eddie called valuable property and his father called junk. The family always knew when Eddie had brought home a new treasure. Eddie would always announce at dinner, "I had a very enjoyable day today." When Eddie said this, his father would look at his mother and say, "Uh-oh." After dinner, his father would go down to the basement. There he would find another piece of junk added to Eddie's collection. "Now see here, Edward," said his father one evening. "This junk collecting has reached the limit. I'm tired of it. The basement looks like a junk shop, or worse. This thing has got to stop." Eddie looked very downcast. "But Pop," said Eddie, "it's my valuable property." "Valuable property!" exclaimed his father. "Junk!" The following Saturday, Rudy and the twins went on a hike with some of the boys in Rudy's class. Eddie wanted to go too, but they said that he was too little. He felt very bad until his mom said that he could go with her and his dad. They were driving out into the country to see if they could buy an old table. It was a beautiful day. As they drove along the roads, Eddie saw the cows and the horses on the farms. He saw men working in the fields. He read the signs along the road. Fresh eggs, broilers. They'd been driving for about an hour when Mr. Wilson brought the car to a stop in front of a store. There was a large sign hanging outside which Eddie could not read. "What does that sign say, Pop?" asked Eddie. "It says antiques," said his father. "Are we going to see Aunt Teak?" asked Eddie. "Does she own the store?" "Not Aunt Teak," said his father. "Antiques. Antique means old. It means that the shop sells old things." "You mean junk?" said Eddie. "No, indeed," said his father. "These things are valuable." Mr. and Mrs. Wilson and Eddie walked up the path to the porch. The porch was full of all kinds of objects. Among them were some huge kettles, some fire screens and brass and iron andirons. There were long iron forks and tongs for handling the logs in a fireplace. "Gee," said Eddie, "it sure looks like junk." All the windows were filled with shelves. The shelves were covered with glass vases and cups, plates, pitchers, sugar bowls. The inside of the store was stuffed with tables and chairs, chests of drawers, and cabinets full of china. "Jeepers," thought Eddie, "I'll bet a fella could find some really valuable property around here." While his father and mother were talking to the owner of the shop, Eddie looked over the shelves. He peered into open boxes and barrels. Finally, he went through a doorway into a storeroom. There, he came upon a man opening a barrel. "Hello, son," said the man. "Can I do something for you?" "I'm just looking around," said Eddie. In a moment, Eddie's eyes fell upon something that interested him very much. On a shelf stood an old carriage lamp. It was rusty and covered with dust. "Do you want to sell that lamp?" Eddie asked the man who was opening the barrel. The man looked up. "I guess we do." "How much is it?" "Oh, about a quarter." Eddie reached into his pocket and pulled out all his money. He had 75 cents. "Okay, I'll take it." The man took the lamp from the shelf. Just then, Eddie's eye fell upon another interesting object. It looked like a small iron urn with a wheel on each side. It too was rusty. "What's that?" asked Eddie. "Oh, that?" asked the man, lifting it down. "That's an old-fashioned coffee grinder." "Those wheels are super," said Eddie, his eyes very big. "How much is that?" "Oh, I guess I can let you have that for 50 cents, said the man. Eddie looked at the coffee grinder. Then he said, "I'll take that too." "Want 'em wrapped?" "Yes, please." He watched the man put the coffee grinder and the lamp into a cardboard box. When he folded over the flaps, they didn't close because the lamp end was too long. The man tied a piece of cord over the top and folded the flaps down, but the end of the lamp still showed. "I guess that'll do," he said. "Oh, sure," replied Eddie as he handed over his 75 cents. "That will do." Eddie decided to go out the back door with his package and he ran to the car. He thought it would be best to put the package in the trunk of the car. His father had left the keys in the car, so Eddie unlocked the trunk, placed the package on the shelf, then he locked the trunk and put the keys in his pocket. This chapter is called Some Valuable Property. Eddie sauntered back to the front porch. He was looking at a broken lock when his father and mother came out. "Look, Pop," said Eddie, "this is a swell lock." "It's a piece of junk," said Mr. Wilson. "No more junk is going into our house, Eddie. Put it down." Eddie put the lock down and walked to the car with his father and his mother. "You left your keys in the car, Pop," he said, handing over the keys. "Oh, thanks, Eddie," said his father. They all climbed into the car and Eddie sat between his mom and dad. For a little while they drove in silence and then Eddie said those famous words of his, "Well, I had a very enjoyable time." Mr. and Mrs. Wilson immediately looked at Eddie. He looked up with a sweet smile, but you know they were suspicious. Mr. Wilson slammed on the brakes and stopped the car. He looked around the back seat of the car and on the floor. There was nothing there. "What did you say, Eddie?" Eddie looked up at his dad. "I just said I've had a very enjoyable time." Mr. Wilson took the keys from the car, walked around and opened the trunk. And there it was, Eddie's package. Eddie said, "Please, Pop, it isn't junk, it's swell stuff." "Eddie, when I said no more junk, I meant it." To Eddie's amazement, his father placed the package in a ditch beside the road. As Mr. Wilson leaned over, he saw the end of the lamp sticking out of the top of the box. He pulled off the cord and lifted out the lamp. "Say," he cried, "why, this is a carriage lamp. I've been wanting one of these for a long time. I wanted to go on the post at the front gate. Why, this is a beautiful carriage lamp. It just needs to be refinished." "Well now." "But I bought it, Pop," said Eddie. "I paid for it." "Well, I'll give you $1 for it, Eddie," said his father. "How's that?" "Okay." Mrs. Wilson joined Eddie and his father. "Look, Mother," Mr. Wilson cried. "Look at this fine carriage lamp. This is mine." Well, Mrs. Wilson was busy looking into the box. "Why, look at this old coffee grinder," she cried. "Oh, this is mine. These old coffee grinders make the most beautiful lamps you ever saw. With a coat of red paint, this will be perfect." "But I bought it, Mama," said Eddie. "I paid for it." "Oh, well, I'll give you $1 for it," said his mother. "Is $1 all right?" "Ah, Mama, I like that coffee grinder. I like it a lot." "Well, I'll give you $2 for it," said his mother. "That's a lot of money, Eddie." "Okay." So the three went back to the car. Mr. Wilson went first, carrying his carriage lamp, then Mrs. Wilson carrying her coffee grinder, and little Eddie brought up the rear with $3 in his small fist. "By the way, Eddie," Mr. Wilson said, "how much did you pay for that lamp?" "$0.25. "And how much did you pay for that coffee grinder?" 50 cents. "Not bad," said his dad, looking at his mom. "You know, Pop, I've been thinking, do you know what I'm going to be when I grow up?" No, replied Mr. Wilson. "What are you going to be?" "I'm going to be a junk man," said Eddie. "That's a good way to get rich." "I I think Eddie might be onto something there, don't you think? Well, that's the end of any old junk today. See, you can get a hobby and maybe make some money off of it. Maybe even have a future business or a future profession. Right, Red Bear? Mm-hmm. All right. See you next time on Kidtime Storytime. Bye.